Hi, welcome back to the class. My name is Ayla Kugona, your facilitator for LIS 212 Indigenous Knowledge Management. For today, we are going to discuss the preservation and documentation of indigenous knowledge. So, let's get back to the class.
Welcome back to LIS 212 Indigenous Knowledge Management, and this is our final lesson for this course. My name is Ayla Kuguna, your facilitator. Our topic is on preservation and documentation of indigenous knowledge management. And at the end of the class, we should be able to explain how indigenous knowledge can be preserved and documented. We should be able to state the relevance of preserving and documenting our indigenous knowledge, and finally be able to list some of the tools used in preserving and documenting our indigenous knowledge. But first, let us attempt the class activity for the lesson. Reasons for preserving and documenting indigenous knowledge. Do you think there are reasons for us to preserve and document our indigenous knowledge? Of course. Well, let's start with the first one. The threat of the indigenous knowledge going into extinction due to lack of documentation or recording. When there is no proper documentation and preservation of the indigenous knowledge, the knowledge is used without the consent of the indigenous people who are the original owners of the knowledge, and thereby no acknowledgement will be given to them for their work. So this threat is there, and for us to minimize the threat, we need to record our indigenous knowledge by using a voice recorder or a video camera. As the indigenous knowledge holder is sharing the knowledge, you will be recording it. Indigenous knowledge is a tacit knowledge, like we know, and since the owners of the knowledge are usually the indigenes or the locals of the community, they should be willing to share their knowledge. And as they share, like I said earlier on, we get it documented and preserved for future purposes, because the creator or the holder of the knowledge will at some time die or become unavailable. So if the knowledge is being captured and preserved as well as documented, we'll still have the knowledge to share with other people in the future. When this knowledge is documented, it helps to recognize the holders of the knowledge, the local people of the community, which may lead to them getting compensation for their knowledge, which has been useful to mankind. And for them to get the compensation they deserve, we need to document and as well as preserve the indigenous knowledge, so that at any point in time, the acknowledgement will go to them And if there's anything probably maybe the government need to do for the community because of the indigenous knowledge that they shared, they will get it. So these are some of the reasons why we need to preserve and document our indigenous knowledge. As time goes by, I will advise that you still do more research on the preservation and documentation of indigenous knowledge and find out other ways and other reasons for preserving and documenting indigenous knowledge. Finally, it's time for our last class activity for this course. It has been a joyful ride with all of you, and I believe that we have done justice to the topics that we picked to be treated. So for the class activity, in this lesson, we have learnt the following. We can now explain how indigenous knowledge can be preserved and documented, state the relevance of preserving and documenting indigenous knowledge, and as well list some of the tools used in preservation and documentation of indigenous knowledge. Even though this is our last facilitation for this particular course, LIS 212 Indigenous Knowledge Management, that doesn't mean that you cannot still reach out to me via email. And my email address is vilaku@noun.edu.ng. Should you have more questions on any of the topics, both the ones that we treated during the 8 weeks facilitation or some other ones in the course material, I promise that as you send your questions, and I will reply and respond promptly.